Hey, welcome into Boston has entered the chat. If you love this show, make sure you check out Hold My Banner, available on Nesson as well, especially now with this historic sale of the Celtics. $6 billion? Good Lord, that's a lot of money. Check us out. We're available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcast. All right, here we go. Boston has entered the chat, a historic one. At that, Travis Thomas here with Kasey Hudson. I'm a poet and didn't even know it. But
Hey.
$6 billion later, the Celtics are sold.
It's weird.
Woo!
It's wild.
Woo!
But what better way to open a show than to talk about the transfer of some money and fandom and, I don't know, ownership? Who's this guy?
Some
What's he
money.
going to bring to the table?
Ugh.
What's this going to do to the Celtics? This is a good way to get the party started, I think.
No doubt. So someone broke the bank to buy the Celtics. We'll talk
Literally.
about it, of course. Plus, I think the Patriots' latest move reeks of desperation. We'll get into
Ooh.
that. And the ever graceful, elegant like a swan, Kasey Hudson skates to the ice. You
I don't know
won't-
if we want to use that
How
as a
about
description.
that? How about that? You won't want to miss that. That's at the end of the program, so we're going to make you hang around for it.
Yep.
Boston has entered the chat, is interactive, so please tweet at us using the hashtag NessonChat. You can also email us always at chat@nesson.com. Now let's get into this because Bill Chisholm buys the Celtics for $6.1 billion. Shams put this out. I couldn't even believe it. I kept reading the numbers
Me
over
too.
and over. So Bill Chisholm, managing partner at Symphony Technology Group, has agreed to purchase the Boston Celtics from the Grousbeck family for a valuation of $6.1 billion. This is historic because this is now the largest sale for a sports franchise in North America. A $6.1 billion. Your reaction to obviously the Celtics being sold, but then the numbers when you saw it.
I was right there with you. I had to reread it a couple of times, making sure I was visibly seeing 6.1 billion coming in hot for the Celtics. But I mean, almost a promising thing to see a franchise get purchased for that amount. Kind of knowing where things are going in the revenue share models, kind of knowing the fandom, or at least from my case, getting to know the Celtics fandom that much more.
Yeah.
It gives you hope as to where this is going. But for somebody to see that much value in something, like, hello,
Yeah.
trending.
I mean, I know you have a list of like the most expensive franchises and what they've sold for.
Should I put it in context now?
I'm just saying these numbers keep going up, Case.
Yeah.
And we'll get into them, but they keep going up. So every time it's eye-popping to us, then the next one sells, and it's double that. And we're like, well, what world, what universe are we living in?
Actually, my response is I didn't know these many billionaires were residing in the States. So fail on my end.
Well,
not making the right friends here.
I mean, listen, we just got to start rolling in different circles, you and I, clearly. He is a local boy. He grew up in Georgetown, Mass., went to Dartmouth. I mean, again, breaking records here with $6.1 billion. As for Wick Grousbeck, this $6.1 billion sale, he's still here. He's still a governor through the 2027-2028 season. The Grousbeck family purchased the Celtics for $360 million. So as we get into numbers, $360 million back in 2002,
frame.
and now they sell for $6.1 billion.
That's a business deal.
That is profit.
Yeah, big time.
So the Commanders were the previous record, right?
So now with this move at $6.1 billion for the Celtics, that tops the charts in terms of purchases. Then followed up, you've got the Commanders at 6.05, Broncos at 4.6. We're still talking billions. I'm glad my producer Brendan clarified that for me because I keep, this is wild. Broncos 4.6, Phoenix Suns Mercury 4 on the line. Mavericks 3.5, Hornets 3 on the line, Mets 2.4, Nets 2.35, Carolina Panthers 227, not 200, 2.27, and Rockets at number 10 at $2.2 billion.
Woo! I mean, like I said, this stuff just keeps going up and up, and then obviously you have the Celtics with that brand, with that history.
And
I understand.
consider the markets of
That's
the
right.
list that just went down there.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's right.
heavily
Yeah.
in certain regions.
For sure. I think this is actually a tremendous move for the Celtics. And I know in general, and I've been a part of covering teams that sell to new owners, and it's general panic. It's like, oh, well, we don't know who this person is. They could come in and do this and change everything. Obviously, the Celtics right now in a beautiful position as champions, and we all think they're going to repeat as champions. But I think this is great because this is a local guy. This is a diehard Celtics fan. So, I mean, what do you think the Grousbecks were? If you come in here, you want to maintain what's already been built. If I'm the new guy, I'm coming in, I'm just going to maintain things. Mm-hmm. Now, I know a lot of bills are due that are going to be expensive.
Right.
Over time, he may want to change that. But as these franchises go up in value, these TV deals we see get done, I mean, money's just being printed here and exchanged hands. So I would come in and I would just not really, I'd kind of stay the status quo for as long as we're winning.
Right.
Once that changes, okay, then I get it. But I don't think that's going anywhere anytime soon. This isn't some old decrepit team that's starting to fall apart at the seams with a bunch of old guys. I mean, we're talking about Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. These are guys in their prime.
Right.
You have all these role players under contract. So I would come in, I'd pay the taxes, I get it. The luxury tax and all the other things and the aprons that everyone tells me about, I get it. I pay all those bills, and I just keep winning championships because I believe that's a realistic window for the Celtics team. You don't want to be the guy who shows up here after a couple titles, blows this thing up,
right,
and then they go to hell in a handbasket. Mm-hmm. Everyone's going to hold you responsible for that. In case, I think because he's from the area and because he's a Celtics fan, he understands that, and he does not want to become public enemy number one around here.
No, and then considering what I'm learning about Massachusetts, that's the last thing you want to do.
Right.
If you're a real Mass native, you protect the culture here, you protect the teams here, and you protect the fandom. So I love that I've come to learn that. Luckily, I grew up with a massive Celtics fan and my brother-in-law, but just to kind of like add to it, the first contingencies, the first concerns when there is a transfer of ownership is financial stability. And then with the NBA's growth to be what it is ever since the whole all-star teams became a thing, that madness, it's where the revenue share distribution is going to go. So I think on top of him being a Mass native from Georgetown, on top of him being a massive Celtics fan, you're also talking about a guy that is amongst a private equity company that the goal, and when you look at the research of the STG group, the goal there is to target mid-market companies and help them excel. So you're talking about a growth focus for people that might not have all the tools.
Right.
And that just tells you how well marketing has to be, how well branding has to be, and how focused growth actually has to attain. So you've got the perfect recipe here in terms of a championship team looking to go back to back. You've got pieces that you want to maintain. You've got youth on this team to see the vision of what the Celtics can be over the course of the next 5 years. It's not impossible for this guy to come in and say, I'm just going to make this better, or, you know, to the small growths that need to be done.
Yeah, I think the small growth is where I would lock in. And the reason I say that kind of goes back to my point originally, which was just stay out of the way for now.
Right.
I mean, you've already wrote the check, right? So, okay, when you come in here, this should be a well-oiled machine. Tatum, Brown, in their primes, under contract, role players under contract. Brad Stevens is even young. Some of this stuff you're not inheriting an old. I would get it if this is the Celtics of old and it's sort of a passing of the torch time.
Right.
We've seen that, and there are growing pains with that. That's not the case here. This is something unique to this particular franchise right now at the timing where they're at. It's almost like, how they say buy low. This is buying high. I mean, you're winning titles, money's flowing. You're paying $6 billion for this thing.
Right.
And right now, it's a turnkey operation. All you have to do is just own it, collect the checks. You're a Celtics fan and a historian, they say, of the game. Good. Sit back and watch history.
That brings me to a question, though.
Go ahead.
As a massive fan, coming in on now an ownership level.
And you paid all that.
All that money. But there's always a positive and a negative to this. The positive being caring about the team, which means caring to protect the team, caring to protect the assets, caring to protect the growth.
Yeah.
The negative, as we know about any diehard fan, is having that I know best mentality.
Sure.
And having in the background all these changes, all these differences that you feel like would make a difference, and now you're in the power seat to make that happen. Mm-hmm. So that's the touch and go with the massive fandom.
I think it's a fair point, and I think you always take a chance in a bad way that could happen from an owner.
Right.
I covered one in my career in Washington who was a piece of shack as a person, and he was a fanboy of the team, and he would come in there and he was playing fantasy football with real football players, and it didn't work. Okay, and then Washington got rid of that doofus, and they have a real ownership group now, and now look at them. That I think they were second on your list there for as far as records for purchasing.
Right.
So, look, that is a possibility. But I think if he's a true fan, he recognizes you don't know best. I mean, you have people in place who do know best. Brad Stevens, in theory, shouldn't be going anywhere.
Right.
That is your Red Auerbach for modern day purposes. Let him do his job. Let him cook. Where you could maybe grow things, even as big as a brand is, and this isn't the day for me to say this on a day they just sold for $6 billion, but I think you can grow the brand of the Celtics.
Yes.
When you think about old school Celtics and the brand, you think about the winning. You think about Bill Russell, Cousy, Havlicek, all the deal. Obviously Bird. But I wonder what the Lakers would go for today. When I see the Celtics go for 6, I'm like, what would the Lakers go for? In my mind, it would have to be more because they feel bigger. They feel more like a global brand. So help in that way. Can you make the Celtics more global? Can you make the brand to where we don't necessarily think of the old glory days?
Right.
We're thinking excellence across the board. They're winning titles right now. So that's sort of something I think he can almost spin it forward.
Right.
If the fandom in him and now he owns a team, that's where he can help. And you mentioned that, like marketing and different things like that. Grow the global brand. He can do that in the short term, mid-term, and the long term as far as I'm concerned. But leave the basketball to the basketball people. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I actually love that you made that point, and to even make the comparison of this brand, this legacy of a team still has a step that it can take.
That's right.
And because when you go overseas, for instance, anytime that I've gone to England and stuff like that, and you meet, they grow up in a culture of soccer and cricket, but if they care about basketball, it's what? Lakers. That's the first thing that they've come to know. That's the brand that resonates with them the quickest. And Boston being that much closer, having a large transport of people from Great Britain, there's an opportunity there to stop throwing them to the Celtics fan base and bring them into the Lakers fan base and bring them into the Celtics fan base. So I love that perspective because I think that he has the capability to do that. Again, where he has established himself business-wise, just tells you between tech, marketing, growth, all these key words here, you're talking about somebody that can stay in their lane as a new owner, but also help this team continue to grow.
I think that's so well said. I mean, we know at the top, and the Celtics are at the top, but at the top, it is Game of Thrones. I mean, we're talking Lakers and Celtics, but you could do the same with the Yankees and the Red Sox.
Yeah.
I mean, it is literally a race for the top between these really big brands. So if I'm him, I'm just like, okay, let me just grow the Celtics brand. And if they're worth, and I paid for $6 billion now, what can I make it in 15 years and 20 years from now?
Yeah.
So that has to be the thinking. But I don't necessarily think you start on the basketball level.
No.
Not to say he's not going to have his imprint. And hopefully it's a good one on this team over time. But I think right now, I mean, hell, if I paid all that, I keep going back to myself, and I can't even fathom $6 billion. But we've all made big purchases on cars or homes or whatever. If I make a big purchase like this, I don't want to necessarily roll my sleeves up and get to work, especially if I had people in place already doing that.
Right.
I would just let things roll, and I would enjoy my purchase for a while. That's what I would do.
That's a good point. The only place that I wouldn't mind him dipping into quickly is, like I said, one of the first points of contention is the revenue situation. And in the NBA, players get 49 to 51% of revenue share in terms of everything that comes in. But again, his background, maybe he has a model that can amplify the revenue and benefit the revenue share, so that when we're talking contracts, large contracts, holding down key pieces of this roster, if he's bringing in the additional income from the revenue lane, then that's him helping get a jump on securing great contracts without long conversation.
No doubt. One thing I did see, too, a lot of people were saying, well, at least with the Commanders, when you paid $6 billion for that, you are also in works to get a new stadium. Yeah. You know, where people are saying, well, you know, for Chisholm, it's like, yeah, you bought the Celtics, but I think their lease with TD Garden at TD Garden is like 10 or 12 years. So it's like you're married to that place. True. But I would say, again, just kind of going back to what I've been saying, that's a benefit because you're still, in theory, going to own the team when that lease is up. Then you can go get a new building if you want or renew the lease or whatever. That gives you that flexibility over the long term and speaks to that sort of long-term value that you're talking about. Let me ask you this. Just a dream.
Just a dream.
Kasey Hudson, if you and I had $6 billion.
Would I buy a team?
What you buying?
Oh.
What you buying? Because I love sports, Case.
I know.
But I don't know if I'm buying a team. I might buy an island.
An island?
A whole island.
$6 billion is a lot of dollars. Can I get a team and an island? Or is that selfish?
Can we put a team on an island?
Right. Can I start a new team on my remote island? And then just imagine the money that comes in because of flying in, tourism, all the things. Like, we're now amplifying our 6.1.
Well, yeah.
I would like both. If I had to choose, if I'm going with the first thing that popped into my mind, I was like, how much does it take to buy Arsenal?
Oh.
Yeah.
It's probably not a bad investment.
That's when you realize that Case is a low-key footy head. But, like, still, how much does it take to buy Arsenal? Although, with what the PWHL is doing, expansion teams, although I don't want to leave Boston, but I'd have to, like, low-key do that.
Yeah, maybe you can negotiate the fleet price.
There we go.
You could just say best of both worlds.
And then that previous ownership can go do the expansion team.
Yeah.
I'd buy a team.
You would buy a team?
I would buy a team.
You're better than me. I just don't even think – I don't think of sports. In fact, I think more from a fan perspective. I'd probably just go to every sporting event ever that I ever wanted to. Like, I haven't been to a Super Bowl.
But as a team owner, you get invited for free.
Yeah, true. Oh, that's true.
Like,
because you're in the club.
They want you everywhere. Yeah. Every pro league wants you everywhere because you are a team owner.
I'd probably get some sort of super yacht and just sail around to every sporting event all over the world.
Oh, I like the sailing.
Like I'm telling you, I would spend the money on frivolous things. I don't know if I had $6 billion, if I would think, let me invest this to make another $6.
Look, if I had $6 and I could grab a team for 2 to 3, I could have a plane, I could have an island, and I can still have a boat. You're limiting yourself.
So how many more shows do you think we need to do to get to $6 billion? Have you done the math?
6.1 billion shows.
The math ain't mathing.
If y'all keep entering the chat, maybe 5.7 billion.
We need to make this chat bigger. Can more enter, please?
We will share the wealth with you, Boston. Of course we will share the wealth.
Well, while the Celtics are breaking the bank. Oh, I did want to get to this tweet, though, because I did see this. This would be me. So hearing you, Case, of how responsible you would be, this would be me. So this is the Grousbecks after selling the Celtics for $6 billion. I'm rich! Y'all broke! Get away from me! That would be me.
This is the best tweet. Although, look, Mom always taught me 7 streams of income.
Oh,
so that's why you got to break up that $6 billion. I know, the pressure.
Lord have mercy.
The pressure.
Woo.
Lady Carrington, she knows her stuff though.
Again, the Grousbecks purchased the Celtics for 360 M's in 2002, and now $6.1 billion.
Congratulations.
Wow. By the way, the Patriots were making headlines of their own today. We'll get into that in 30 seconds. But first, stream the entire Red Sox season with a NESN 360 annual plan. It's available at an all-new reduced price of just $20 a month, paid annually. For a limited time, get 4 free tickets to Fenway with your purchase. Visit NESN360.com to sign up today. Okay, Case, I couldn't even believe this. So Stefon Diggs, I've heard the rumors from days ago that the Patriots and Stefon Diggs were kind of flirting with each other. And I thought to myself, that's odd. I don't think that's a good match at all. That's not going to happen.
Started out on Snapchat.
Yeah. It was like just a quick little, hey, you up? Like one of those type vibes. Then now I'm hearing they're having dinner. He visits with everyone.
They graduated off the social platforms.
Yeah, there's a physical involved now. At the time of recording, all these things are happening. Do you think Stefon Diggs at this stage of his career, coming off an injury, helps the Patriots? Like, there's so many other things they need in my mind. And I know wide receiver is one of them, but is it him at this stage? It just feels like a reach. It feels like desperation to me, Case.
I'm not going to call it desperation only because considering the free agency pool, number one, considering, yes, they've got all this money to bring people in, but when everybody's too new to the scene, you're extending what that rebuild is. You're extending that timeline beyond that 3-year mark that we always try to realistically frame around a rebuild. What I will say is that once I heard that somebody was digging around New England, I had to go make my pros and cons list. I love a good list, y'all. Pros, the experience in the AFC, for one.
Yeah.
That compete in the AFC specifically. He was the 6th most targeted receiver in 2023, playing all 17 games. Yeah. That just tells you accountability, reliability, his adjustments during a game. We've seen that. And regardless of the personality and the attitude, vice versa, we've seen somebody in key moments who can show up. He was highly relied on in every roster that he's been a part of. On the con side, the biggest conversation around him is the confrontational behavior. Could he actually be a leader in this locker room? But even though I've had all those questions, and the other big question mark, the ACL tear, medicine has come so far. Yeah. I mean, we saw Tom Brady bounce back from ACL. We saw Adrian Peterson bounce back and have a tremendous season after an ACL tear. So medicine aside as well, you're talking about seeing players in positions. I'll focus on Peterson for a minute, where it's so much more aggressive for a running back because you're coming back. You have a constant low contact around that injury. Fear can play a role into how hard you run after that. So I'm not too concerned with the ACL tear. Then pivoting to what stood out to me the most is the fact that CJ Stroud, a young quarterback, had an opportunity to play with this guy, actually wants him back in the Texans locker room. Has vocalized that a number of times. So I think he's one of those guys where, like, if you can stay on the same page as him, he's in your corner. If he's in your corner, everything's going to fly well. He's got that AFC experience. He is a reliable guy. He adds to the wideout situation of the game plan, and his football IQ does kind of fall in line to what Josh McDaniels is probably going to come to the table with, considering. So I don't hate it.
I hate it. And you know why I hate it? Actually, it's in your description of what he is now is where I find the hate. Because you're right. I mean, when everything's going great, I think he's a valuable asset, probably even still now, to be fair. As long as he can come back healthy. All those things you mentioned that he can bring, the veteran presence, leadership, all that kind of stuff, is there. So I get it in theory. And certainly in your wide receiver room, what the hell do you have? So I do get it. Mm-hmm. Where I hate it is I don't believe he's the right guy for it. It's more a personality trait. Like, in other words, his best bet, listening to you describe the Texans, is to really stay there, to be honest, and rehab and come back to a team with a more established quarterback. I'm not going to sit here and act like Drake Maye can't play, but C.J. Stroud's more established than he is.
He's got a leg up.
Right? He's been in the playoffs. He gets it. He's been around a little bit longer. D'Amico Ryans, a coach who, he's still young, but same thing. He's established as well. He's shown I can get to the playoffs. I think Stefon Diggs' best bet is to stay with the Texans. But if he comes to the Patriots, why I say I don't think it's a good fit personality-wise, you're still rebuilding here, especially offensively. Mm-hmm. Drake Maye's got to go through growing pains. I mean, Mike Vrabel's trying to build a culture here. Year one, that's going to take a minute.
Yeah.
Josh McDaniels has to get reacclimated to being back with the Patriots in a whole new way, a whole new look. I just think it's going to take a while. By the way, your wide receiver room in Houston, although banged up, is way better than the wide receiving room in New England.
But he didn't love that. That's where there was some whispers in the hallways that it was like, I'm a clear wide receiver one, and now I'm over here trying to make my case with every rep I get. So even though it wasn't spoken on such a loud and confrontational level, it came up a lot.
It did.
Like leading up to the injury.
It did. And by the way, it was loud and confrontational in Buffalo.
Yeah.
So now I have proof in Buffalo you were a pain in the arse when things started to go left and you weren't winning. Then there's rumors that you were difficult in Houston. And now what? Because I have money and my wide receiving room stinks, I'm supposed to bring you in here and put you around a young quarterback who I'm still trying to develop, put you in a locker room that I'm still trying to develop an identity with. I just think I understand the business side. It is high risk, but it's also high reward as well. And you're not going to pay him. You're getting Stefon Diggs at this stage for pennies on the dollar.
Right.
So I get the business side. But I just think you have to be real careful when you're trying to build a culture. And I keep using that word. But is a diva with a reputation and a history. These are facts, folks. A history of being a diva. Is that what you want here? Like, now, if you sit down with the kid and you have a conversation and you feel like, okay, he's learned from past mistakes.
Right.
He's humbled himself to a certain extent. He's coming off the injury. He just wants an opportunity. Well, you're going to put your trust in him that that's the truth. But what happens if all that happens and he goes out there and he's balling and then you go on a 3-game losing streak because, rebuild and all? Like, that's realistic.
Right.
And then he starts running off at the mouth in the media about not getting the ball. I think it's too risky in that way.
I guess that's where the word desperate will enter the chat.
Yeah.
Because at that juncture, you're thinking to yourself, the times that he showed frustration with the Texans. Well, thinking from the head coach perspective, or not even his perspective, what's probably one of the first things that was kind of said about DeMarco Ryan? I got that right? Play calling.
Yeah.
There were just some really lousy play calling coming from the top.
Yeah.
Then you look at some of the fact that what did hinder the Bills in a number of situations the years that he was on the roster. Poor play calling. So there just has to be a conversation and a level of trust there to where it's like he doesn't think that he knows best, but he's been in situations where he thinks that he knows best. But also considering Mike Vrabel's approach, considering his personality, considering he may not be confrontational, but he's direct.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll help diffuse a guy like that a little bit. Because I do think Vrabel has that player's coach mentality, and I have a lot of respect for a very smart player's coach, and I think Vrabel is just that. Outside of it, though, something else that it seems like has come from his confrontation and diva mentality and attitude is what? It's clear that he wants to be the clear leader. It's clear that he wants to be the clear wide receiver one. He would be that here.
Be that. Yeah.
So that point of argument is now, it doesn't have legs. It doesn't have life because you come in, you got a little bit of a name now because we've talked about the fact that this roster doesn't have a name.
Yeah.
He would run with that.
He would. Well, that's what I'm sure he's looking for. And those names you speak of, I mean, think about who they lost out on. DK Metcalf on the trade. That was a trade front that, quite frankly, could have been done. Deebo Samuel, same thing. Although I know a lot of us were kind of cold to that for the same reason.
Right.
A lot of people felt like, well, Deebo's a diva. Do you really want that around Drake Maye? I would say Deebo, although he's had health issues, is healthier than a Stefon Diggs. He can help you sooner at least. Seemingly, they've lost out on the trade market with Brandon Ayuk and A.J. Brown as well, although rumors are still swirling there. And then we know from free agency, Godwin, Cooper Kupp, T. Higgins never even hit the market.
Right.
So, look, that's why I say this reeks of desperation. When you start talking names, and we had a handful of them. We were all in love with T. Higgins a couple months ago. But we all had our sort of power rankings for wide receivers here for the Patriots to go after. Stefon Diggs was not on the damn list. And now all of a sudden, because those names ahead of him are gone, it's like, well, all right, let's see what we got here. I don't think it's going to work. Again, the business side makes sense. He's not going to be expensive. You're taking a shot on him. It's like you're kicking the tires. Like, literally, can this guy come back healthy and help our wide receiver room who's young and average? So I do get the business side. I just think personality-wise, you have to be careful when you are trying to establish something and build something. If you bring someone in who's all about me, and not necessarily we, and we're trying to build that, it can go south on you quickly. And look, I also understand when he's at his prime, you probably dealt with a lot more BS than you would from him now. So this sort of feels kind of Belichickian to me because Belichick for years would get these receivers or any player, any position for that matter, but he would get players who were sort of like disregarded. And he would bring them in, pennies on the dollar, they'd have a chip on their shoulder, want to prove I still have a lot left in the tank. And he could sort of squeeze that juice out of them at the end of their careers.
Right.
And a lot of times it was personalities and divas and things that you thought, well, that could rattle the cage. But you had Tom Brady here. You had Bill Belichick here. Nothing against Mike Vrabel. To your point, he's got a strong enough personality to deal with that. But I don't know if Drake Maye does yet. And again, he's not in his prime. So a lot of the stuff that Buffalo put up with, and maybe even Houston for 5 minutes before he got hurt, you're not going to deal with that here. So I would need to also, the terms would need to be very like, hey, man, if you start messing up around here, you're out of here.
Right.
We're getting you out of here. What you can't do just because you have money is overspend for Stefon Diggs.
Yeah. Well, I think that's maybe what makes him flattering is like even though you have the money, you're going to probably offer him more than any other team considering the injury as well as him being a 31-year-old wide receiver. But the other contenders in the pot here are Dallas and the Chargers. Right. Chargers are probably a better contending team considering all avenues here, but outside of it, nobody wants to go to the drama that is Dallas, considering his personality. And then Chargers, I mean, it just depends. Their game plan, what Harbaugh's running over there, he's not going to be the clear diva of the roster.
No, they run the ball so much in a Harbaugh team.
Exactly. So I think here in terms of kind of reinventing the wheel a little bit, he'll have an opportunity in that.
That's a good perspective because if you're Stefon, let's look at it from Stefon Diggs' angle. We're looking at it from a Patriots angle.
Right.
If you're him, I would choose the Patriots because that would be the quickest route for me to get paid again, to get another bag.
Yep.
This move should not be the bag, okay? This is sort of a prove-it deal. You come in, prove I can get healthy, prove I'm not a diva, prove I still have something left in the tank, prove I can work with Drake Maye, Josh McDaniels, Mike Vrabel. I can buy in.
Be a leader.
Be a leader. Be a veteran leader. Teach these young guys. And then, they have the most cap space in the league. I'm still here. Pay me, baby. So I do see that. Here's the other reason where, even though I think it's desperate and I don't like the move, if you're telling me I'm getting Stefon Diggs and Travis Hunter in this draft, and those are my receivers along with the rest of these guys you already have. Okay, now you're cooking with grease, and I'm all right with that. But if Stefon Diggs is it, I'm not. I don't dig it.
I can totally get on board with the package deal because after listening to Trevor Sikkema mention, like, hey, if there's a focus point in bringing Travis Hunter in, throw him back at CB, have particular packages at wide receiver, or like work it in differently. Well, when you have a veteran presence in Diggs, you can really be meticulous with what that wide receiving package is for Travis Hunter, and then have him as a weapon and focus on the defensive side of the ball. So it kind of balances things out. In all honesty.
All right, enough all this football talk. I'm ready to skate to the ice. But first, I always say we're interactive. We need to hear from you. So you, too, can enter the conversation by tweeting at us using the hashtag NESSonChat. You can also email us, thechat@nesson.com. We want to hear about your thoughts on the Celtics sale. We want to hear about your thoughts on Stefon Diggs and the Patriots. We want to hear your thoughts. Enter the chat, would you? Boston has entered the chat. Is available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and wherever else podcasts are found. All right, Case. Well, our Hockey Hub peeps caught up with former Bruin Anson Carter, actually, and they talked about everything from stories of Bruins greats to the current playoff picture. Let's take a look.
And joining us now, TNT analyst, former NHL forward, former Bruin, and former Michigan State Spartan. You're representing. Anson Carter joins us. What's up, Anson? Thanks for joining us on the Hockey Hub.
Go green, go white. Let's go. Can't wait for the Spartans this weekend, but thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, big matchup against Ohio State. We'll start there. How do you feel about the Spartans going into the Saturday matchup?
I don't want to jinx them, and I plan on being in East Lansing this Saturday, but the Spartans are looking great. Trey Augustine looks amazing. Isaac Howard, Tampa Bay first-rounder, looks great too. So I'm predicting a win by the Michigan State Spartans this weekend.
All right, there you go. Well, of course you are. But I want to ask you, I know you were recently inducted into the Spartan Hall of Fame as well. What did that mean to you?
It was special. You know, it's not something that I really expected to have happen. You know, I always say to people that 4 years at Michigan State were the best 4 years of my life, hands down. I got to be careful when I say that because my wife and kids were like, wait, hold on a second. That was before we came around. So what exactly are you talking about? But, it was an exceptional experience. I wasn't expecting it. There's so many great athletes that came through Michigan State and came after me afterwards and came, before me as well. So tremendous honor that I was so proud to be able to share with my family.
Yeah, congratulations on the honor. It's an exciting time of year. It's trophy season in college hockey, and around here we get the Hockey East semifinals. This episode drops on Thursday, kicks off tonight at TD Garden. It's exciting for that. It's exciting because we're hitting the stretch run in the National Hockey League season as well. The trade deadline has come and gone. Obviously, a lot of big moves across the league, Anson, but no bigger moves as far as we're concerned than the ones that happened here in Boston. Of course, Charlie Coyle, Brandon Carlo, Trent Frederick, Justin Brazeau, but the big one, Brad Marchand traded to the Florida Panthers. When that deal went down, what was your reaction?
No, I was shocked, but I wasn't really shocked. Marshy's not a spring chicken anymore, and I think we understand it's a business. And he came in this regular season really banged up, multiple surgeries. And as you get older, it takes a little bit longer to recover from those surgeries. Now, as a young player and having surgeries myself, I always said it takes a good calendar year, 12 months, before you start being yourself. You might be back on the ice again, but you're not going to be who you are as a player previously until 12 months have gone by post-surgery. So I think Marshy had that going against him. And I was a little bit surprised, though, because he was the heartbeat of that Boston Bruins team, and he took less money the last time his deal was up. But I get it. It's a business, and it's a cold business. I think Patriots fans have learned that the way Belichick ran that business for a while. Players leaving, even though they still had some gas left in the tank. And I understand Marshy wanted to stay. And listen, he didn't play for free. He was definitely paid very well there while he played in Boston. And he'll definitely be up in those rafters when it's all said and done when he retires, because he gave his heart and soul and his blood to that organization. But I totally get it from both sides' perspective.
Were you surprised at the return? It's a second-round pick. I know it's conditional based on the Panthers' success in the postseason. Got to win a couple rounds, and Marchand has to play like 50% of the games in order for that to turn into a first-round pick. But even with the injury, are you surprised at the return?
I'm not, because he could have picked wherever he wanted to go. So it isn't like Donnie Sweeney could have shopped him to all 31 other teams and said, give me your best offer. It was really up to Marshy to decide where he wanted to go. And, I tip my hat to Sweens, too. I think he understood what Marshy meant to the organization, and he did him well. He didn't do him dirty. He didn't send him to San Jose, even though Marshy could have vetoed that deal. He put him in a position to go ahead and win another Stanley Cup. So that was an honorable thing to do, which a lot of times GMs don't really do those kind of things. A lot of GMs say, see you later, and you're like a piece of meat. So I give Sweens a lot of credit, because Marshy, if he wasn't going to re-sign in Boston, he wanted to be given the opportunity to go chase another Stanley Cup, and certainly the Florida Panthers will get that opportunity this spring.
When you were a member of the Bruins, there was another captain that was traded while you were part of the team, and I know you were going through an injury at the time, but Ray Bourque traded to the Colorado Avalanche. Take us back in terms of leading up to the deadline, what you can remember about, the idea even of Ray Bourque being traded out of Boston.
Well, we knew in the room internally, and there was a lot of talk, even externally too, about Bubba wanting to go and chase a cup. He deserved it. He had an illustrious career. He meant so much to the city. He did so much over the time that he was there in the city of Boston that he deserved and he earned that opportunity to go win another Stanley Cup. And when I arrived there in Boston, I believe it was 96, 97, the team was rebuilding. So they were definitely, several years away. I don't think they were planning on winning a cup by the time he was still playing. So we actually thought he got traded to Philadelphia. Right. That year, Philly had a chance to win a Stanley Cup. They had the Legion of Doom, Eric Lindros, John LeClaire, Mikael Renberg, sorry. So we thought that's where he was going. So when he went to the Avs, we were shocked that he went to the Avs. But for us, we were happy for him in a sense that he had a chance to go and finally win a Stanley Cup, or get the chance to win a Stanley Cup, because nothing is written in stone. Only guarantees we have are death and taxes, as you know. But as a young player in that room, we were excited because now we had a chance to have our voice being heard too. It's not like Bubba suppressed our voices, but when you have such a presence like that in your locker room, you tend to take a step back and let him lead. And then once he left, that gave us a chance to exhale as young players and have our voices be heard also.
Yeah, it's hard to believe we just celebrated. Well, not around here celebrating. I don't think that's the right word, but it was a quarter century ago that Ray Bourque was traded to the Avs. Of course, didn't win the cup when he got traded immediately, but the following year he was able to do that and go out on top, and then celebrating with the cup in Boston, which is still sort of strange, but nonetheless, he was able to do that, and you feel happy for him. In terms of Brad Marchand, he's still got some left in the tank. Obviously, hoping to help the Panthers for a playoff run. Unless they work out some sort of extension, he's going to become an unrestricted free agent at season's end. Do you envision a return to Boston?
I certainly, from listening to what he had to say on all of his pressers, I think that door is still open, but it's really to come down to what Brad Marchand wants. Does he want a 2-year deal? Does he want a 3-year deal? And is he willing to come off his number? Now he gets the chance to see life on the other side of the fence. Sometimes the grass is greener, sometimes it isn't greener. So I think Marshy will be the person that will determine whether he comes back to black and gold. I never saw him playing in any other sweater than the Boston Bruins, but you just never know. But I definitely, from listening to him, and I've heard a lot of press conferences over the course of my time playing in the National Hockey League and now covering the game, that you could tell when the guy closes that door, or you could tell when that door hasn't been closed yet. And it takes two to tangle. So I'm sure, Donnie Sweeney will have something to think about if and when that time comes.
All right, so Marshy not the only trade that was made at the deadline. The Bruins making a number of moves. Charlie Cole, Brandon Carlo, Justin Brazeau, Trent Frederick, as I mentioned. Getting some draft picks in return to sort of build that back up after years of trading to compete going into the postseason at the deadline. And now you also get some players back in return. Casey Middlestat you get from Colorado. You got Murat Huznadinov as part of the deal for Justin Brazeau. Jacob Lauko as well, and Henry Jokiharju from the Sabres. Which of these pieces sort of stand out to you in terms of helping the Bruins moving forward?
I think the first name is Casey Middlestat. I watched Casey Middlestat play when I covered college hockey at NBC Sports. He was at Minnesota, a really good young hockey player. I was surprised he turned pro when he did. He had an outstanding World Junior Championship that year before he turned pro, so I think that was probably what changed his mind to leaving school early. And it's taken a while to figure it out. Now, in Colorado, when he first got there, he looked like the perfect fit. He blended in right away, started producing offensively, and I thought this is their second-line solution. And for whatever reason, it didn't happen. And he looks pretty good in the Boston Bruins, jersey right now. So can he take that next step? He's going to be given every opportunity there in Boston to be that second or first line center. Can he take that next step as a young hockey player after playing in two different organizations and then these teams saying, well, you're not good enough for us? Can he use that as a chip on his shoulder going through the summer, have a really good summer of training, and come back and prove to people that he's a legit top 6 hockey player? Because he's got the skill, he's hard on pucks, he's got great vision. Now it's a matter of time that he puts it all together.
Yeah, he's made an impact so far in his short time with the Bruins. And so you talk about a Bruins team that's made the postseason 8 straight years, obviously sellers at the trade deadline with all the veterans that were moved. But with all that said, Anson, they're still only 3 points out as we record this, the final playoff spot. And, a lot of teams would be celebrating that fact. But here in Boston, it's a down year. But they still have some talent in the room, and I know they have some injuries, obviously, with Hampus Lindholm and Charlie McAvoy. Lindholm's out for the year. McAvoy's return is still up in the air. Do they have enough to make a push, or is it just too tough of a hill to climb?
I think it's too tough of a hill to climb, but I don't think the future is bleak for the Boston Bruins. They have some nice tent poles to build around. Swayman, I expect him to bounce back next year. No training camp is hard for a goaltender. Trust me, I held out twice. As a player, I think it's easier. As a goaltender, I think it's tough. You got on the back end McAvoy, who I believe Charlie McAvoy should be a Norris Trophy candidate every single year if he ups his game offensively, because you have to get people's attention offensively to really get in that conversation. And I think playing on the power play, becoming a force in the power play, will help McAvoy be that guy. And then you've got Pasta up front, one of the more lethal shooters in the National Hockey League. So you got those 3 pillars to build around. And the most important thing that Boston has, they have the city of Boston and that organization. What Cam Neely and Donnie Sweeney have built there, it's a lot different than when I was there in Boston. That organization didn't spend money. Guys didn't want to go to Boston. Guys weren't taking less to be there because they weren't treated the way Cam and Donnie are treating their players today. So having said that, this doesn't have to be rebuilt. It could be a retool. They could change this thing on the fly pretty quickly because Boston is a destination. Guys love playing in Boston right now. Guys love living in Boston right now. It's a hockey town without a doubt. So I don't think they have to go 3, 4, 5 years into rebuilding this thing and tanking completely. With those pillars you have in place, this could turn around fairly quickly.
Yeah, and Don Sweeney has made a point before and after the trade deadline. There were no plans to rip it down to the studs, and obviously with the players that you mentioned still in place for years to come, those are pillars moving forward. So in terms of the playoff race, if we could look, just in the Eastern Conference, and the Bruins, obviously they're still in the mix, but some teams have emerged. I mean, as we record this, the Montreal Canadiens have moved into the final wild card spot. We haven't seen them in the postseason in a while. The Rangers season was all but dead a few months ago. Now they're very much in the mix. The Senators looking to snap their postseason drought as well. They're well in position. Who do you see, among those teams in the playoffs?
It's so hard because every single day it changes. Right. At night I'm watching 3 or 4 games, and you think a team is going to be on a run, then all of a sudden they get in a cold streak, and they're in the wild card position or the outside looking in, or teams challenging like Ottawa, trying to catch those second and third place guys in the Atlantic Division like Tampa Bay and Toronto. It changes so much all the time. I've been so impressed with what Jeff Gorton has done. Boston Bruins should be familiar with Gortz when he was in Boston, helped build those Stanley Cup teams there in Boston, in Montreal with Ken Hughes. And Lane Hudson, Bruins fans, Boston hockey fans should be familiar with what he's doing as a former BU Terrier, has been unreal. He's been incredible with what he's been doing. So, the Montreal has really surprised me, but this could be the dawn of a new era. Those teams that were rebuilding for so many years, well, not so many years, the last 3 or 4 years, are now taking that next step. Montreal's taking that step. Ottawa's taking that step. Detroit now is knocking on the door. So those points that you thought were going to be gimmies and givens by playing those teams and just money in the bank, those are no longer guarantees anymore. You've got to work and scratch and claw to try to get those points. And I didn't even mention Columbus. Yeah. Columbus in the last week or so, Columbus was in the mix too, and that's a great story. Another BC alum, Johnny Gaudreau, great story there. Everyone rallying around the passing of Johnny. Tragic story, about him passing, but great story about everyone coming together and really embracing his family and what Johnny hockey meant to the game of hockey, not just there in Boston or in Calgary or Columbus where he played, but everywhere around the world. He was so wildly embraced. So all those teams that were doormats for years have now taken that next step. So that's what makes it for me as a hockey fan now. Yes, I get paid. I'm an analyst. That's what we do. We talk about it. But deep down, I'm a fan at heart. So grab your popcorn because this thing is going to be settled until the end of the regular season.
To watch Adam Pellerin's full interview with Anson Carter, check out the latest episode of Nesson's The Hockey Hub podcast, available now on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and wherever else podcasts are found. Now, I've known Kasey Hudson for a little bit of time now, but I think I have a few things figured out. She is a woman of many talents, and one of them is on that ice. Skating.
That's kind. That's awfully kind. That is so kind. I will pull from that pivot and just say this is how much I love my Nesson squad, for one. For two, had the coolest opportunity to hit the PWHL practice ice out in Wellesley. We can run the footage while I describe it to you guys. But
look at this.
I was doing a skate. Actually, look at the. Let me start all the way over. For all the chirpers out there, this is your girl's first time ever trying to actually hit a puck. Stick in hand, hit a puck. Yeah, I've skated. I started off skating figure skating, so we already know that's different. You're not, puck handling or anything like that. And then I switched over to hockey rec skates a couple years ago. So the skating aspect, your girl's got it. First time doing this, well, as you guys can see, it takes a minute. I probably looked like Happy Gilmore for the first couple of takes. But no, this was fantastic. We went to Where the Fleet practice. I got to meet a couple of the girls as well as Coach Kessel, which is just amazing not just considering what Boston Fleet is doing right now and how they're climbing the rankings positioning themselves so perfectly in the postseason. But right here, my personal coach of the day is the assistant GM, Megan Turner. And she was just brilliant with her insight. We did a little bit of I met my younger self at the rink. Yeah. Kind of like bending off of the trend right now. Oh, there's the goal.
That. Put the biscuit in the basket.
But she found it after her first time ever trying to puck handle in her life. And the footage that you guys don't have is that I actually set up Turner for like a pretty nice apple there too towards the end. Yeah, spinning backwards and everything. So it didn't take me long. We just gave you the condensed version of what the start was to figuring out my hockey future. But no, it was amazing. Got to do a skate interview with Turner. Learn more about the fleet. Turner has a fantastic background. She's on the Army National Guard here in Massachusetts. She played D1 hockey, Quinnipiac. She also played professional in Canada. So women's hockey is just growing tremendously.
No doubt.
Boston Fleet leading the way, not only here, but across the nation. The fan base tremendous, the sold out crowds, and they're doing all the right things at the right time.
Hey, you know what? You're helping grow the game too.
Thank you.
That was a mean slap shot. I will give you that. Honestly,
first time. I mean,
fantastic.
I don't give myself much credit for much, but like, come on. I only walked away with one bruise on the knee. Shoulders are a little tight today, but I was so excited. I mean, it meant the world to me to be out there and just to be a part of a sport that I love so much.
For Kasey Gretzky Hudson and Travis Thomas, thank you for entering the chat. Till next time when we ask you to enter it again. Peace.